Alrighty, in this video I kind of want to do a little bit of working on the examining portion of items. So what I mean by that is when we go to pick up this cube, for example, I want to be able to make it so I can move it closer. So I want to move it closer to the camera, be able to make it move it farther, and then eventually be able to rotate it. Because as of right now, we can't really do anything. So if it's a small picture and you want to be able to read it, you might have some trouble unless you zoom in. So we're going to start on moving the item. So if you recall how I have this set up, let's go back to our character. No. Add item, no. It's the attach. So we have it in the item. Here it is. So we get mesh s underscore item attach. So that's our socket that we're attaching the mesh to when we go to pick it up. So we want to modify this socket. So to do that, we want to be able to move it closer and move it farther away. So we have to have some input set. So I want to do these on our mouse wheel. So I'm going to go to project settings, input, and action mappings. I'm going to add two new ones. First one's going to be called move item closer. The other one's going to be move item further. So these are going to be our mouse. So mouse wheel up or down should move closer, and mouse wheel up should move it further. So let's go ahead and save and go to our input bindings. We're going to copy our interact twice. And set the names. So move item closer is going to be the first one. Move item further is going to be the second. And I'm going to go ahead and create functions with the same name. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste them as the function names. So to, let's see, to create the functions, we're going to go to our interact, drop item. Let's do it under server drop, or under perform line trace. So we're going to do void, move item further, and void, move item closer. Go ahead and create the definition or the implementation for both. And that's it. So we should have it bound where it's not going to complain, which it's not. What we want to do is do a couple of things. So first off, we want to check. So if we even have an item, so if held item, that's going to be the first check. Because if we don't have an item in our hand, we don't really want to be able to move, we don't really want to zoom in on it. We have that. Then we want to, for now, we're just going to actually move the socket a little bit closer to ourselves. So we need to kind of do what we do with the line trace. So we can have our look at, or we can get a look at rotation and use the position and multiply that. And so that way we can zoom in kind of by increments. So would be the Kismet math library, I think. Yeah, I think. So what we're going to do is get our socket location. So f vector socket location equals get mesh get socket location. Then we want the socket. So the socket was, if we look at our item.cpp, s underscore item attach. So that gives us that. Now we want to get the look at rotation. So f vector to camera rotation, or sorry, f rotator. That's going to be equal to the u Kismet math library. Find look at rotation, and then the parameters, which are the start and the end. So we have our start, which is our socket location, and then the end, which is going to be our camera. Get follow camera, get component location. So that should give us the rotation that we need, kind of like the forward vector, to look at ourselves. So from there, we want to jump a little bit forwards. So we can have our f vector, new location, equals socket location, plus do camera rotation dot vector. And we want to multiply this by pretty much the distance we want to jump by. So I'm going to do 10 centimeters. And then we can set the socket. So get mesh, set socket. Actually, how do we set a socket location? Or better yet, we can probably just move the item a little bit closer to it. So held item, set actor location to the new location. And then we're going to do the exact opposite and our move item farther away. So we have our, let's do away camera rotation. So that'll be the new name. And then we rotate these around. So the get follow camera location is going to be the start, and the socket location is going to be the end. So that way we kind of go the exact opposite route, so to speak. And then we have to change the socket kind of starting location. So we have the socket location. I'm going to change, that's actually still named the same. I also want to get the, what do you call it? The camera. So for the new location, instead of doing the socket location and then adding the away camera, we're going to instead do the get follow camera, get component location. So we're going to go from the camera, face the socket, and then go forwards by 10 centimeters. Let's go ahead and give this a try. Okay. See what happens. Press F. Zoom in. Zoom out. So our zooming away is a problem. So my guess is it's currently we are inside of it, judging by the shadow. So let's try this just on the server. We go closer, we go farther away, we have the problem. So I press F8. And yeah, we are inside of it. So we got some issues here. For starters, let's try to do it, where's the function? Here. Let's try to do this by smaller increments. So we're going to do by 3 instead. And live coding. You can see if that makes any difference. No, because I can only seem to do it once. So there is obviously a little bit of a problem here. So the reason being, we're not actually modifying the socket location more than once. What we're doing is when we move our scroll wheel down to move the item closer, we are just adjusting the held item location. So we want to try to get a distance between ourselves and that socket. So that way we know where the item is. What we can do is in our our escape room character, we're going to have a control float. So float held item distance. And by default, this is just going to be 0. Interaction distance, held item distance. Go back down to these functions. Move item closer. What we're going to do is change the 3 to held item distance, like so. And we're going to increment it. So held item distance plus equals 3. So we'll move the item closer. We want it to kind of go farther by, well, 3. And I got to figure out what I want to do here. So for now, I'm just going to subtract it by 3. Just to kind of get a rough idea in my head of what actually is happening. Because I'm kind of developing on, you can't tell I'm developing this kind of as I go. I'm not really doing much in terms of planning. So you're kind of seeing everything. Okay. So press again, press F. I can move it closer. And it has moved too far. So when we go away, let's see, did that put it in the head again? Is it still, what the heck? I'm backwards. So this is gone, it's going straight back still. So we have our move item closer, that's just fine. So let's try to think about this. So we have differences. So now that I'm thinking about it, what we can do, let's just copy our move item closer. We're gonna do the exact same thing, but we're gonna kind of go, not necessarily forwards, we wanna go backwards. So the socket is always gonna be in the same place. So instead, we're just gonna subtract. So this might actually fix it. So that way we're kind of on the same we're on the same track, if that's even a way to put it. There we go. I'm moving it farther away, like so. Now I'm moving it closer, farther, yada, 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 back and forth. Yeah, those are kind of small movements, but that'll work for the time being. And now let's try this on the client. Move it closer, move it farther. That's working. Server shouldn't be able to see it, obviously, because we're not replicating it, and items will not be this big. But I'm kind of curious when I press it out here and drop it, what happens? So it's off on the client and the server. So we are going to have to, when we go to drop it, what we can do is we can, well, I don't necessarily want it to pass in an F vector for the new location. So what we might do instead is try to replicate this in a way. Because if we do it on the server, we have, whoops, I wanted to do that. If we do it on the server, it should, well, we should be able to see it move because the item is replicated and the server's doing it. So for example, move it farther away, move it closer. You can see how the server adjusts it. That doesn't happen on the client. On the client, it just gets moved. So we're going to have to create some kind of server RPC of how we go through to move this. So we can instead just pass in the held item distance to the server and have the server run this. I think that'll probably work in terms of keeping everything replicated. So as well as it'll keep it in sync with the client, because the client's going to make the move first, and then the server's going to make the move. So if there's a little bit of a difference, for example, it should adjust. Anyhow, that's going to be it for this video. If you like what I'm doing and you want to support me, you can find a link to my Patreon down in the description below. I have a Team Deathmatch series just for patrons where we cover Team Deathmatch from the ground up with C++ and an Unreal Engine, as well as a couple other features like weapon customization, custom spawning, and as well on top of that, you get early access to my videos, such as this one, Patreon's Guide to See It First. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to join my Discord down below as well, and I will see you in the next video. So, take care.